We have quite possibly one of the best tournaments I've seen in some time going on in Raid Shadow Legends, so we're going to be talking about that here, and we're going to be talking about which champions to use for this particular tournament as well. So if you come over here into the tournament section, you're going to see this spider tournament running for 2 days and 18 hours at the time of recording this video. However, the challenge with this tournament is that you have to use champions from only the Barbarians faction. Now, inside this tournament, you actually do get some pretty juicy rewards. So you're going to get yourself 35 of these prism crystals, I think they're called, or something crazy like that. You're also going to get yourself 80 of the hammer points. You're going to be able to get yourself a mortal shard as well as a ancient shard. I think those are the mortals, either mortals or immortals. Yeah, the mortals. With that summon, you're going to be able to come over here to the summoning portal, and you're going to be able to get into the summon pool. Now, what do you get a chance to pull from the summon pool? For most of you, you're probably going to get an epic champion. The ones that they have in here are all from the Orcs faction. Now, there are definitely still some decent champions in here. So, for example, we have THOR, who's probably the best support champion inside the Orc faction, and definitely one of the best epic revivers inside the game. This guy carried my team through the Iron Twins inside City of Centranos as just a small example. He's absolutely fantastic. You also have Sandlash Survivor, who can definitely help you survive a lot with her passive. And then, of course, her ally buff extension on her A2 makes her useful for some of the Infinity comps with like a Wixwell or champions like that. And she can do very competent levels of damage as well. We also have a Trumbor, who is okay. He puts an ally protection out, increased defense on himself on a 4-turn cooldown. He can definitely help you to stay alive if you don't really have, anyone else to do it. We have a Yelagurna, who still has yet to have a review on my channel, but I am actually excited to bring that at some point. I have one of them 6-starred out. She has a passive where she's reviving a random ally with 50% HP every time she kills an enemy. And she has an absolute blast on her kit as well. We have Vrask, who's probably one of the best healers inside the game, right? At an epic level, certainly. We have Zargala, who's still a very competent defense break champion, as well as a pseudo-nuker on her A2, which is absolutely incredible. There's a lot of good epic champions in here. Now, even if you have these champions maxed out and you don't really have an immediate use for them, you can still empower them as well, even if you get these champions. Now, apart from Shayak, the former fusion, I would say that most of the legendaries included in this are actually incredible champions as well. We do have the new faction leader here as well, who is the first champion in the entire game who has a skill where he attacks his allies. So you target an ally, the damage dealt is equal to 50% of their HP, then places a shield on them for any of the HP that's missing, and basically he's doing that because allies with 50% or less HP deal 30% more damage. They also receive 30% less damage. He's also increasing the attack, HP, defense, and speed of all allies by 5% every time somebody dies. This guy looks like a very interesting champion. I'm curious to see how he gets played. I think in an area like Hydra specifically, he's going to be an absolute beast because he has a 100% chance of placing a provoke. So he's going to be able to deal with the head that can be provoked there. I always forget the head's names. And then, of course, if you have 3 faction allies, debuffs placed by this skill cannot be resisted. Now, what would be cool is if Raid is actually staying true to what they said about Shayak, where he's going to have some cool people join him. Because if you think about it, we take the new faction leader and Shayak, that's already 2 people. Then if we had a very cool Hound to pair with him, so say for example if Terror Beast was actually good, we would have 3 faction allies automatically and you'd get fully powered up by this guy. Of course, RTAC is decent for Hydra as well, so if you can get yourself a duplicate RTAC to run with these guys or something like that. We have one of the other champions here that's new as well, so the Matriarch Zarguna, which she is an HP based nuker, so she's probably going to be pretty okay, I would say. She does a little bit of support for your champions as well, which is quite nice, placing a taunt on herself and all those sorts of good things. Overall, great champions to be pulled here, even at the epic category. Orc Faction Wars was probably one of the hardest faction wars that I had to get through when I was trying to get my Lydia, so I know for sure there are going to be some other folks out there struggling with it as well, so it'd be cool to be able to get you guys some better champions to get through it. Now, not only that, not only do we get great rewards, we get great champions, all that sort of good stuff, we also have a clan versus clan starting in a little bit here, and this is actually a personal rewards CVC as well, so it starts in about 15 hours. That means that when you're farming and pumping out those spider runs, you're also going to be able to get yourself a lot of CVC points, which is going to be fantastic. Let's go ahead, let's hop into the spider and let's see what's going on. Let's actually go first though into the index so I can talk about the champions that you're probably going to want to use. Now, if you were lucky enough to have completed the Armand's fusion, You can basically just use our Mons and throw them in there, and this tournament is as good as won. The reason for that is with with his A2 and with his AI, he's going to be able to just make sure that the spider and the spiderlings essentially never get a turn. So he's going to steal all their turn meter, and there's like 10 of them, so he's getting a crap ton of turn meter. Then he does his A1 against the main boss, pushing their turn meter back a little bit too as well, if you have the mastery that does it. That being said, if you don't have our Mons, there are still ways to turn meter the hell out of this dungeon. You can use Loki with his A3, I believe it is, that does the turn meter steal. You can use that on the main boss, and you're essentially just guaranteeing that the main spider never gets a turn. You can also use somebody like your Carl, who has a turn meter steal on the A2. Then he also has the AoE freeze on the A3, so a significant amount of control. Now, this is a very, very strong faction, all things considered, for this tournament. The reason for that is we have a fusion in our Mons, Thor, and Yakarl is available for free from the clan shop. We have the daily login champion of Loki, and we have Syl of the Drakes to help bring you a lot of CC as well as healing. If you have somebody like a Contra, you can of course put her in there too for some useful debuffs. Even in the epic category, we have some very decent champions. So we have Farrakhan the Fat, who can bring in the ally attacks and help just nuke them down a little bit quicker. Hai Katoon can come in and really help with the speed boosting, as well as some decreased speeds, or decreased turn meters rather, on the enemy team. You have Huskarl, who can come in and actually do an AoE stun, and then he can also do a cleanse of a stun, but that's not really going to be applicable. But he's also going to place an increased defense and increased resistance for 2 turns, which is absolutely insane, so it's going to help you resist those poisons a little bit more effectively. We have Jamarsa, who can come in and be reviver, turn meter booster, all that sort of good stuff. Of course, from the rare category, we have War Maiden, who's probably the best AoE defense break at a rare level still inside the game. There is definitely competition. I made a video back in the day about that, about why I think Fencer from the High Elves is actually better than her. And then we do have Berserker, who I actually made a video on as well. So he has an AoE 2 times, ignoring 20% of their defense. This guy can actually smack pretty hard as well. As you can see, he has some decent ratings. Lots of good champions inside the Barbarian faction that you can use for this particular tournament. I don't think many people are going to be struggling with it. It will just take a little while is the issue. So this is the team I'm using. We're using Yakarl. I have Turvold in here for some damage. He also has the Brimstone. That's not really going to be that effective, though, just because, of course, like the spider's never getting a turn. We have our Mon stealing the turn meter. Farrakhan coming in for his defense break on his A1, as well as his ally attacks, of course. I'm going to go ahead and show you how this goes. This team is a 100% win rate. Thor is essentially hardcore carrying us at this point. He does like 12 million damage. The rest of the champions do like, anywhere from 2 to 4 at best. Now, that being said, I am just going to go ahead and let this run through, and then I'll hop back with you once we're actually at the end of the run. That way you can go ahead and see how much damage was done by each champion and how long it took. Now, we're about 3 minutes in, and the run is about halfway done, so this one looks like it's going to be significantly slower than most of them. About 90% of the runs I've done so far on this particular stage, so this is stage 20, about 90% of them have actually been between the 1 and 3 minute mark, so it's a little bit disappointing that right when I'm recording it decides to slow down, but we're getting some bad RNG, I'll say. The one thing that is very cool about this too is, so Thor has the mechanic where after he gets a certain amount of hits, he's essentially going to go ahead and just do that AoE with a stun and some more damage. Now, as you can see, basically every AoE he does, he procs that because there's like 10 enemies that he can hit no problem. Then of course Farrakhan bringing him in on the A1s too to get those extra smacks is going to be absolutely insane. So it's very effective to run Thor in this dungeon. So it was very kind of Plarium to actually give us a faction that we just completed a fusion for. I think overall this is very healthy for the game, right? Just giving players a challenge. This is completely optional. If you prefer, you can just save your resources as well. You definitely don't have to, spend on this by any means. The tournament is running long enough that I would say even free-to-play players are going to be able to get through it with their daily energy. And then those players are going to get a free shard pull during a personal rewards clan versus clan as well. Now, that being said, keep in mind, even if you pull a legendary, the other clan is probably going to be pulling a legendary or two as well, so it'll kind of balance out in the end. Overall, though, I think this is incredibly nice of Plarium, and I'll give credit where credit's due. This is definitely a positive for the game. The run should be done here soon. I'm very excited to show you guys that damage. My Thor has no masteries at the moment. As you can see there, he got his secondary hit as well. Farrakhan's ally attack is going to go ahead and take down the boss. You can see Turvold and Thor doing some big damage there. Now, Thor has 19.5 million damage, almost 19.6 million damage. The next closest champion is Yakarl the Scourge, who, if I move my head here, you can see he has 2.4 Then it's going to go to Torvald with 2.3. So you can see Thor is definitely carrying this team. If you don't have Thor, if you didn't complete Diffusion, you can still do this dungeon run quite easily. You're essentially just going to go ahead and use, you know, another nuker instead. So there's plenty of options with inside that faction. Let me know down below, though, who you guys are using in this. And I would also be very curious to hear who you pull from your one free summon as well. Make sure to save it for the CVC, though, of course, unless your clan is trying to throw this CVC for whatever reason it might be. That being said, as always, thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.